Welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. Now that the quote unquote final trailers are out for both X-Men Apocalypse and Captain America Civil War, let's do a trailer battle between these two Marvel juggernauts. I'm first going to start off with the most recent X-Men Apocalypse trailer. And I'm going to try to go scene by scene, but sometimes I might skip. So I'm just going to go through the really intro real quick. So during the intro, we're once again back in Xavier's school for the gifted, and we start with McAvoy and Jennifer Lawrence, and this is like I would say classic Singer. Bryan Singer did the original X-Men. He also did X-Men 2, and then Ratner did X-Men 3, and that didn't go too well. And then he came back. Bryan Singer came back for First Class, and now he's here for Apocalypse. And the beginning, it's not really anything new. You would kind of expect that, okay? And let's go ahead and compare that to the Civil War trailer, the opening at least. So, here we kind of start in a cold tundra, where we have the Winter Soldier, would kind of make sense. And this pretty much leaves off where the last Captain America did, and also a little bit of a Ant-Man as well. And we get a shot of Captain America, okay? So, just those two intros alone, I really, really did find the Civil War one to be more, I guess, more interesting. It catches your attention right away. Okay, whereas the X-Men one, it's kind of reminiscent of the other trailers that you've seen for the previous X-Men's. So not really anything new there. But as we're going along, you you kind of get like an intro to what's really going on in terms of story. Here they talk about Apocalypse, Oscar Isaac, which was before he became Apocalypse, of him becoming a god. And, this is where things get a little more interesting. And, if you have not seen the previous X-Men trailers for this movie, it's better that you haven't seen it. Now, in a lot of ways, you're kind of introduced to the four horsemen in a lot of ways. So, every time they talk about Apocalypse and how he always has four horsemen, and this kind of introduces people who are not comic book fans to who Apocalypse is, and also, how this story is going to play about, and the whole. I guess the whole thing with the four horsemen, and I think that's a good way to introduce people because in a lot of cases, not everybody is a huge comic book fan, and so you get that really nice shot right there, and so you see Apocalypse, you see Storm, Psylocke, Magneto, and Archangel. So that made the trailer to me more interesting. The beginning wasn't too much, but then when you got there, really good right there, and especially for people who are not familiar with it. Now compare that to the Civil War 3 trailer where you know after you get back into the whole Winter Soldier part, this is kind of where like the movie kind of changes, into a sequel to Winter Soldier 2, a sequel to the Avengers Age of Ultron, so very good segue here, and it kind of sets up the whole mood for this particular movie and what the whole plot is about, so the whole thing is about basically, like all the events that happen in the Avengers movies, the Captain America movies, they had some true impacts, and that impact was the fact that a lot of people died. Okay, and so if I had to compare these two intros, at least the second half, I would say it's a tie between the two, because in one case where you have the X-Men Apocalypse, you're introducing a lot of new elements. I mean, some of the elements they're there before, but some of the elements they're new. To pretty much people who are brand new to comic books, that really does a good job of doing that. Okay, and at the same time, it introduces Apocalypse and the whole idea of the four horsemen. Okay, and then in the Civil War trailer case, you don't really have to do a lot of setup for the characters because these characters are the ones that you are already familiar with, and they're basically do a great job of segueing into the previous movies, which is pretty difficult to do, and also setting up the plot. And so I think it's a tie there. And also, let's take into consideration that for the X-Men Apocalypse, you're actually going back in time. You know, you're actually back, I would say, in the 80s. And so a lot of these comic book characters, they're a lot younger than their selves in the very first X-Men movie that came out years ago. Okay, so I think it's a tie there in that part. And you know, as you move along this trailer, you know, you get showed introduced to Magneto and his a little bit of his motivations, and then you know more scenes of destruction by Apocalypse. He's basically a god, you know, and so he shows more of his power. So just more and more destruction. You know, more and more destructions. McAvoy's gaining power, I guess, through Apocalypse. You know, I'm gonna skip through some of this right here, and then just to set up the X-Men talking. And you know, in this particular movie, I think because of Jennifer Lawrence and her star power, she's put in this movie a lot more than you would think for a character like Mystique. You know, so that part, I'm not really feeling it too much. You know, there's Jean Grey and here's Cyclops, obviously younger versions of themselves, and then you know it shows the other characters, Nightcrawler and then Archangel. Um, and you know, this is kind of where the trailer becomes more like every other trailer that you've seen for X-Men. And man, I really do like Quicksilver. And this scene was golden where Quicksilver is telling Mystique that, hey, Magneto's his dad. And then, you know, the way how he came about, he was just explaining how he was born. And it was just funny. I really like Quicksilver in this movie, especially I can't remember the actor's name who plays him, but I really liked him in the Days of Future Past. He did a great job, and you know more action montages here. You know that you've seen in other trailers, but just as a trailer alone, not including the other X-Men Apocalypse trailers. Good job, you know, good job in terms of comparing it to the other X-Men Apocalypse trailers that we've seen previously. But you know, it really doesn't do it much different. You know, it's just showing more destruction, more action. It's just more and more action. Okay, and so you know, as you're going through the whole trailer, that's what it is. It's just a lot more action shots, more money shots, Psylocke battling beasts. You know, it's more action. Okay, so I love the Quicksilver ad. I had to say that again. And then Jubilee, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Striker, yeah, Striker, I think. And then more destruction, more action, and you know, it's almost done with the trailer. But let me go back to the Civil War. Okay, so now you get the intro to this new movie. And here's the difference between the tone of these two movies, okay? Whereas X-Men Apocalypse is all about, you know, once you do the quick intro, let me show you more action, action, action. This one's more about the story, okay? What's going on? What's this conflict that's going to come up between, you know, Cap and then Iron Man and then the Winter Soldier, how he plays a role, and then all the characters with Black Panther, awesome. So this trailer goes a lot different route. Now there is action in here, but there is a lot of like how the story, what's the motivation behind it. You know, here's Rhodey basically getting shot down, and so this one you get more invested in it right away. Okay, I mean it doesn't stop. You know, so you kind of get scenes from the other trailers, but this does a lot better job of putting everything together. You know, so I'm gonna skip a little further, and then you know, oops, I think I went back a little too far. So, yeah, so this one it's more about setting up the plot. There's action elements here, and then you know, there's obviously the battle between Cap and Iron Man, and so this trailer it does, I think, a better job of setting everyone up, setting up the story, which is really hard because there's so many characters, and this one does a lot better job. I was more invested in this trailer from the beginning and then you know all the way to the end. There's more action scenes here, but it is related to the story. You know, there's crossbones, and you know it just shows you the conflict that they're going to. And I like you know the line. This is from the very first Captain America where he goes, I could you know I could do this all day. Um, it's awesome. You know, awesome. So then the final battle at the airport between the two. So yeah. So let's go back to X-Men Apocalypse and let's just wrap it up. So more destruction, more action, and you know at the end, you get a little something a little special when he gets there. There's Havoc, more Psylocke, Jean Grey, Apocalypse, action, 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 action. And then when you finally get to the end, you get something that most people were maybe expecting. Yeah, Wolverine. So overall, I think for sure Captain America Civil War trailer, this wins the battle here. I just think it did a lot better job of not only reintroducing you to everybody, also, the sequels to the Winter Soldier and then to Age of Ultron, and then setting you up for this whole new story and whole new conflict. And it shows you the motivation behind this particular movie, okay? Whereas in the X-Men Apocalypse, it's really more action. It's more action than anything else. Besides the initial setup of the Four Horsemen, um, and the Civil War movie comes out next week, May 6th, and um, the X-Men Apocalypse comes out on May 27th. And so, just from the trailers alone, I'm more excited for Civil War. And as I said in previous episodes, Civil War initially wasn't something that I was really excited to see. But now, after this last trailer, yeah, it looks pretty awesome. And so I can't wait to see both movies, but I'm more excited to see Civil War, and maybe eventually, whenever these particular properties, the X-Men properties, goes back fully to Marvel and Disney, you might have better movies. Even better than the one that Bryan Singer is doing right now, because you have access to more material and so forth. So that is it for this pretty much long battle between the Civil War trailer and the X-Men Apocalypse trailer. Let me know what you think of the trailers, and if you have seen Civil War, let me know about that too. But I'm definitely gonna go see it next week when it opens. But if you saw an early screening, leave that below too.
Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.